All right, it's time for our photo assignment 5, which is our first landscape project. And it's a panoramic landscape project where we are extending the format, the native format of your camera, either horizontally or vertically. And we do that by overlapping multiple exposures and then seaming them together, as you see with this rainbow, and then processing them as a whole so they look like one continuous image. We also are going to shoot with what's called infinite focus. So landscape mode is generally a good default shooting mode for your SLR if you want it to automatically adjust your shutter speed for you without having to amp up your ISO. And that means that things far in the background will be just as in focus as things in the foreground, provided you don't have anything too close to the camera. Now, a panorama, it extends our field of vision beyond what is normal. So you can see here, we're looking up at this little fixture at the top of this military boat, but we're looking down at the gun. And that's something our eyes can't do at the same time. But in photography, we can make it look like that by angling our camera a few different ways, shooting flat on the horizon here, and then shooting up. And then we're able to seam it all together. And it gives us a warped viewpoint, like a fisheye lens. Now, I really like vertical panoramics. This is from a natural history museum, and it shows one-point perspective, but everything is in really sharp detail. Here's an example where you're looking up just as much as you're looking down at this crevice in the ice. It's nice to get high viewpoints with panoramic shots so that you don't have that horizon just really cutting into your picture and making it visually boring. Right. And sometimes, instead of looking only at the ground, you want to look mostly at the sky and push that horizon line quite low. You put all these skills together, and you can get documents of our landscape that have exquisite detail, but also are thought out compositions that really lead your eye around and make it so you can just keep looking at the image over and over and over again. And when professional photographers do large format photos, really large format, 14 feet, 20 feet, they're not able to get that with just one camera or one exposure. They have to do that by seaming together multiple exposures, sometimes taken by multiple cameras all at the same time. So we're going to be learning those skills with this project. So we don't need to sketch to start this project. We need to simply go somewhere where we think we can get good compositions, either horizontal or vertical. And we take more shots than we need, covering the area. So I did 2 passes. And I'm going to pull them over into 2 folders. Pass 1 and pass 2. And in pass 1, I went left to right, and in pass 2, I went right to left. So pass 1 started here. And I like how our camera, numbers our exposures. It's better to have too much overlap than too little. So this was my first pass. You only need, to meet the requirements of the assignment, 5 different photos that you put together. And then this was my handheld pass going right to left at a slightly higher angle. All right, so now I can already see that I didn't quite move them enough, right? I moved them about 1/3 of a frame each time. To be really productive and not waste a lot of time, you want to move them 2/3 of a frame. But it's better to have too much overlap than too little. And you can see that I'm moving it each time about 1/3. So basically, I should only need to use about half of these to get my shot. And I'll show you how I can figure that out. So I went left to right, so I'm going to open up in Photoshop my first file. And because I went left to right, I know this is on the leftmost side. So I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to grow the canvas behind it off to the right. And its width, I'm just going to make it a lot bigger, so maybe 90 inches wide. And it will add all of that space to the right side because I moved where it's growing from. I'm also going to extend its height a little bit because exposures tend to travel up or down. So I'll build a little bit of height above it and below it. It's going to be an extension color of white. Hit Command O to fit it all on the screen. And now I have my extreme panoramic shot. I probably won't need all of this space. Okay, now I'm going to open up my next exposure. I'll hit F3 to get back to my exposures. And I'm going to put this one in. Now, instead of opening them all up in Photoshop and then copying them and pasting them in, I'm just going to bring over my raw exposures as what are called smart objects. And then in this long view, I'm just going to roughly place them. And then hit Return. Now, smart objects in Photoshop, they reference an outside file. So that one looks like it's overlapped about the right amount. This is just rough placement for now. And I'm going to skip some because I can see I don't need them. Oh, but that's a tricky kind of man-made path. So yeah, I might need more than one there. We'll see. Nah, it will be okay. All right. Try skipping another one. See if I can get away with it. Hit Return to place them. Try skipping another one. And then I'll put the last one in just so I have it going edge to edge. Because this was about 180 degrees that I shot, compressing it all into this space. Okay, now if I zoom in, I can clearly see where the edges of my photos are, right? And so the trick is, how do I seam them all together? I just really wish I had the higher viewpoint so I could see the water that's there. And that's why I took it off the tripod for my second run, so I could get that higher viewpoint. But this is how it works. I have all these different layers. Notice that they're smart layers, which means I can't edit them. If I try to erase from them, which we will be doing, it will tell me I can't without first right-clicking on it and saying rasterize layer. Why is it not letting me do that? So by right-clicking and then saying rasterize layer, it will convert it into a layer I can edit. I'm going to do that one by one. And the way we're going to edit it is like putting shingles on a roof. The key is to never have this happen. This is what causes problems. So I'm going to do a soft eraser at a low opacity. And this is what's called ghosting, right? It's bad processing where you have two overlapping exposures, each part of it showing something. And that's not what we want from a good seaming job. Because even if we line something up perfectly, not everything's going to match because the cone of vision is slightly different. So instead, we want all or nothing. We want to find the point in each frame where they just match up perfectly, and then we just want to cut it out at that point by selecting it with the lasso and then just hitting delete. And I'm on the wrong layer. So let me move that selection down to the layer I can actually affect, and then delete, right? But how do we line that up before we make that step? So this isn't about kind of blending the textures together with the eraser. It's about lining them up. And this is how we do it. So this is our first frame. We leave that locked in. We turn on our second layer. We take its opacity down to 50%. And we use our guides with our rulers and our move tool to figure out, okay, what's about a third of the frame, a third from the edge of our first picture. And within the middle of that last third, in this area here, that's where we want to line something up. Anywhere from this third line to the edge, but not too close to the edge, that's where you want to find something that you can line up. So in this case, it's this tree. Because notice how the path diverges, right? And it doesn't line up here, but it can line up right there within that third zone. That's where the cone of vision of the camera, the curvature of the lens, where they can kind of match up. So I take this now and I use my move tool and I use my arrows and I nudge it, and I am looking for where does it look clear, and I'll get a little path. I'm going to draw that path. It's always nice to be able to use a natural divider like this tree trunk. And I'll carry that up and over and through. And I can always add to this selection. Right. And I want to make sure I get all of that photo. So I'm cutting a lot of it away, almost half the photo away, because I didn't need to overlap it that much. And now I'm going to hit delete. Okay. And now to see if it actually works, because all that looks pretty good, I have to take its opacity back to 100. And then deselect. And the only place you can tell that they're not one even frame is at that edge right there. Now if you want to kind of go in and make little spot corrections, you want to use your eraser at 100% and then play with erasing. But this can go bad pretty fast. So you try to do as much as you can with just a clean overlap. Like one shingle overlapping another. All right, once you've done that, you build up your next layer. You make sure it's rasterized by right-clicking. You take it down to 50%. You find that overlap zone with your guide. So somewhere from here to here. And I'm going to line up now this tree. And using my arrows to line it up pretty well.